and a high of 91.
Classic 107.3 and 96.3. KNOU HD2 St. Louis.
It is my delight to share with you two marvelous gentlemen this morning who are here to represent the Gateway Festival Orchestra. The first one you've met before. His name is Dr. James Richards. He is the artistic director of the Gateway Festival Overture. Good morning.
Good morning, Kathy.
It's lovely to have you here. He's also Founders Professor at the University of Missouri St. Louis, Founders Professor of Music, which one might expect. It's great to have you back.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And then we also have with you a new visitor to our studios here, and his name is Paul Higdon. He is the president of the Gateway Festival Orchestra. Good morning, Paul.
Pleasure to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here, too. And we're going to be talking about the annual Gateway Festival Orchestra concerts, which come every July.
Right on the horizon.
Right on the horizon, yeah. Now, you sort of skipped yesterday because it was just barely July.
Barely July. We get involved with the 4th of July festivities and logistics and whatever, so we opted this year to start the second week.
There you go. That makes good sense. Yes, it is kind of odd to have the 4th of July in the middle of the week. Everybody's schedules are sort of like we have 3 weekends in 1 week, you know? it's all goofy. Well, you have Sunday night performances. You've been doing this how many years? Around 54-ish?
Well, not me personally,
no,
but
not you.
Yes, this is the orchestra's 54th season.
He was a wee baby.
And yes, we won't talk about that. I think I've been 17 or 18 personally, but yeah, this is the orchestra's 54th season, almost all of it at an extraordinary venue, Brookings Quadrangle at Washington University. It's just a great place. The orchestra has long traditions of programming there, free concerts, basically all of the Sundays, excepting the first one in July, and we think it's a real community treasure.
It truly is a community treasure. You know, I remember going to these concerts when I was a kid, growing up here in St. Louis, and it was always just such interesting programming. It was stuff that I knew and maybe something that I didn't know, and it was always just a very family-oriented kind of a wonderful way to spend a Sunday evening.
I think you've hit all of our bullet points. We aim to program in a very enjoyable way, occasionally a new piece, a new experience, but we focus on repertoire that is familiar, that's appropriate to an outdoor setting. Yeah. We guarantee, Paul guarantees, perfect weather, balmy breezes. I wish I could say that, but it's always cool on the grass.
Well, there's something magical about the Brookings Quadrangle, is that for some reason it seems to be a little cooler than the rest of go outside the quadrangle where it's 5 degrees warmer. Maybe the shading of the sun over the buildings or something, but I have noticed that in the evenings it might be still lingering in 90, but it feels coolish in the quad, so please come.
And an interesting thing too, it's not like it's static. Sometimes in a quad it's probably big enough that it breathes a little bit with breezes, you know.
Correct.
But you guys really have had a good run as far as the weather is concerned. We trust that will continue.
You know, I don't have a count on it, but we have lost over those 54 years very, very few concerts to weather. We've had a couple close calls, and we had We had a performance of Night on Bald Mountain a few years ago that's memorable because it was, fortunately, the rain trajectory was straight down. It was not blowing into the stage, but it was a thunder and lightning display that Disney couldn't have topped. And people still remind us of this. But no, we have a wonderful run. We almost always perform. Rarely does the weather get in our way. And we have a really faithful and avid audience about coming to this place in the month of July for these special programs.
And you promise them you'll never program the Mussorgsky again.
Oh, I don't know. I had the nerve to program the water music one time, and the orchestra gave me grief about this. How dare you
Yeah, what are you
offer
trying
the
to
hint?
What are
But
you
we
doing?
got that program in too.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'll look back when you started. The gentleman by the name of Schatzkammer. Yes? Am I saying that? Yes.
Correct.
Schatzkammer.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I wasn't here during that time either, and I never knew Willie Schatzkammer personally, but he was the heart and soul of the orchestra for decades. And due to his efforts, the orchestra grew and improved, and Dr. Richards has absolutely capitalized on that and run with it, because one of the things that struck me when I was not a member of the board was how amazing the orchestra sounds. And if you knew what limited rehearsal time they have together and what an amazing concert they put together, you would be doubly impressed with what you're hearing. They are exceptional musicians, and we have an exceptional conductor, and it's all free. It's all free. Bring your friends, bring your family, make it an event. We have Ted Drew's frozen custard available.
Yum.
We have bottled water in case it is on the warm side. You can bring a picnic if you want. Bring a blanket, bring a chair. Jim hit on it. It's the venue that makes it special, but it's also the musicianship and the incredible variety of music we have in the programs. And I'm sure we'll talk about that here as we go on.
Yeah, we will. We'll kind of give an overview of the season. Now, there's also something kind of nifty that you do, which is called the notes. Let's see, notes to munch on, as people are enjoying that little picnic that they've brought with them.
Correct.
And you're going to be taking this over from Ray Taylor, who's done it for
Right. Well, I kind of
several
transitioned in the past couple of years. It's a blast. I'm up on the steps there under the overhang, so if it's raining, I'm okay. But we get a little flock of people, and they're really, they bring a lot to the table, the audience. We have some really, we always say St. Louis is a great baseball town. It's also a great classical music town.
Yes, sir.
And our audience, when I do that Notes to Munch on, they ask some really great, pertinent questions on the information. So anyway, that occurs at 7:10, which is 20 minutes before the concert begins. And that is free and available, and we would love to have you at that too.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, Paul. By the way, I'm speaking with Paul Higdon, the president of Gateway Festival Orchestra, and also Dr. James Richards, the artistic director. And, Paul, have you been a musician yourself, or are you a musician?
Yes, I have been, and still am. I like to think I'm a professor at St. Louis Community College in music, and
Thank you. I
kind of a
didn't realize
little
that.
bit of a jack of all trades, as we tend to be in the community college realm. But Dr. Richards asked me to plunk some keys on Danzón Cubano, and he also asked me, and by doing that, in effect, to start counting again, because Aaron Copeland loves what we call changing or mixed meters,
Yes, he
and
does.
so I'm looking forward to that, and I can't wait to hear him talk about the repertoire, but absolutely, and that's why I feel like I can just say when I listen to this orchestra, it's just top notch. I mean, it's the venue, but it's also the quality of the music you hear that makes it so special.
Well, speaking of that quality of the music, and of course the musicianship has just, bloomed to such a wonderful extent. Let's kind of talk about those programs you've got. We've got
Let's
4
talk about
weeks.
the
Let's
season.
talk about the
Yes,
season. That's what we're
indeed.
here for.
Well, we do start this coming Sunday And that program is being in proximity to the 4th of July, our national celebration, is
have a
not
little
so
rah-rah.
much a patriotic program as it is an all-American program. And we do have some patriotic favorites, but we also have, I would say, music that is by American composers or that was inspired by American traditions. So we were starting with Leonard Bernstein's 100th anniversary, 100th birthday year, Overture to Candide. Then we jumped the Atlantic and have a little Dvorak from a couple movements from the New York World Symphony that were indeed part of his presence here in the United States. He actually wrote it when he was in Iowa, mostly. And so we have that illusion. Then several other pieces by prominent American composers. One that I doubt if really any St. Louis audiences have heard, I can't attest to that, is a new arrangement for string orchestra of the Randall Thompson Alleluia, which is for choral musicians, a real standard, one of the glorious pieces of the American literature.
Absolutely.
Randall Allen Bass, a Texan, is a marvelous composer and arranger, and he was commissioned to transcribe this particular piece for a string orchestra. It's just a beautiful piece.
It's just got to be gorgeous.
The audience will have to supply the text, but the entire text is Alleluia. So it's not too strenuous to remember that. And then a few other things. We have some music by Sam Adler, by Aaron Copland. We have an audience favorite, the Armed Forces Salute, which actually incorporates all of the theme music from the various branches, and a couple surprises on that program. So that's our opening gesture.
I know, and a surprise or two even. Okay.
Yeah, well, we don't have to reveal everything
Okay,
here.
that's good.
Yeah.
We'll keep a
Then
couple
our
cards
second
to the
week,
vest.
that would be July 15th, we are devoting to music of composers from the Nordic region, from Scandinavian. Those words get a little bit confused. But the main work is Sibelius' First Symphony, a marvelous work. It's still in the heart of Romanticism. It certainly has qualities that take it away from the mainland of Europe, but it's really a beautiful piece, considered really one of the great pieces of that literature. And several other composers from that tradition, Lonnie Grandal for the first movement from the trombone concerto with our own principal trombonist, Wayne Caniglio, as soloist. Little music of Sibelius, a couple movements from Peer Gynt, a couple of the favorites. And it seems like that we had left out something there, so we decided we needed to represent the music of ABBA. So
Why not?
A few selections from Mamma Mia. It's not always. If we can go on the next Sunday, the 22nd, we do a fast turnaround, as Paul was saying.
Yeah.
We do a rehearsal, we do a concert, and it's on to the next one.
That's it.
So we're looking at music of, I guess you'd say, the Spanish diaspora. It's actually mostly not music by Spanish composers, but music sort of about the Spanish cultural, linguistic, geographic tradition. We have Rimsky-Korsakov, Capriccio Español. Paul alluded to the Danzón Cubano by Copland, which he will be tickling the ivories, as they say.
Yes.
It's a big piano part.
It is a
So
big
glad
piano
he's
part.
playing with us. Several other smaller pieces. We have a marvelous soloist, Anna Zhang, playing first movement of the Lalo Symphony Español. And along with several other selections, and again, finishing with a little bit lighter touch, but the epitome of certain Spanish traditions, music from Man of La Mancha closes our evening.
Neat.
And the
Everybody
last
go home.
concert, fourth concert, is it would be hard not to admit that it's my favorite. The title of the program is Conductor's Choice.
Yes.
Never question the maestro. And I think it's a little bit from lack of maybe a better theme, but indeed it is a collection of pieces that I would have to consider my favorites. And we have little Overture to D Fledermaus, little starting from Strauss, Schubert Symphony No. 5, which is an absolute gem of the literature of the B-flat major symphony, marvelous soloist Zachary Folks playing the Weber Concertino, a little bit of Tchaikovsky, and finishing as what better could you finish with the Bersusen finale from the Firebird of Stravinsky. A big finish.
Lift everybody up.
It's a great moment.
It truly is. I think the maestro's bonbons are well selected.
Thank you. Bonbons. I hadn't thought of that. I like that term.
You like that?
But Kathy, did you notice how there's something in every concert for somebody?
Yes.
So this is one of the charges we have, is we try to bring classical music and beyond to the region, again, all for free, that we can appeal, we can have a mass appeal, and there's something in there for everybody.
Absolutely. And, I think that's such an important thing, too, where somebody says, oh, wow, I didn't know that's what this was. I've heard this 100 times, and I love it, Well, speaking of things that we've probably heard a few times, but we absolutely love, let's honor Leonard Bernstein here on his 100th, and the Overture to Candide being played by the New York Phil, and guess who's on the podium? Lenny himself. Yes. Oh, yes. That is such a great overture.
It is a great piece.
We all were sitting here directing it. along with the maestro. And it's such a terrific piece. That's going to be in the first of your 4 programs.
Absolutely.
This is for the Great Gateway Festival Overture. And if you happen to have just tuned in a few minutes ago, we have Dr. James Richards, the artistic director of the Gateway Festival Overture. He's also a Founders Professor of Music at UMSL. And Paul Higdon, president of the Gateway Festival Overture and professor of music at which St. Louis Community College. There we go. And I had failed to put that on my little cheat sheet here. So my apologies.
No.
So I have a question for you now as a pianist.
Yes.
When we have a piano on the stage and all that sort of thing, do you rent a full piano? Do you use a keyboard? How do you keep that piano dry if it is a full piano?
Well, that's a really good question, Kathy. And anyone who's seen Laurel and Hardy and the great grand piano across the rope bridge and between 2 mountains knows the travails of bringing a piano on a stage. So we do not bring an acoustic piano on the stage. The weather situations just doesn't permit it. So we will bring an electronic piano on the stage. Ken Kaner has often played piano with the organization, and I believe he will this year. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes, he will.
Yeah. So we'll have an electronic keyboard for both that concert and the one with the Copeland on it.
Well, the electronic keyboards now don't sound electronic anymore. I mean,
it's not the 1970s. They're much different, and the big concern you have is, can we all hear the piano? Because they're more designed for a classroom as opposed to a concert stage. So we're not out of the woods yet. We got a little tinkering to do, but we'll get it.
It will work.
Oh, it'll work.
It'll work.
And you guys you're terrific. You'll make it work. Now, I want to go over the names of all these one more time, because the first one is From Sea to Shining Sea, Celebrating America.
Self-explanatory, I hope.
Self-explanatory. The second one, and you'll love this, my dear audience, From Start to Finish, F-I-N-N-I-S-H, with, of course, Sibelius and then a few other Nordic composers on there. Terrific.
Cute title. Huh?
Very cute.
I take credit.
You should. I think it's darling, start to finish. And then En Español, and then that's on the 22nd of July, and the final one is the Maestro's Bonbons. Actually, Conductor's Choice is really what it's called. And now I have a question for you, because you have 2 young artists that are being featured on this, Anna Zhang and Zach Folks. Tell us about the educational component of all this.
Well, indeed, featuring young artists, providing opportunity for outstanding emerging players is part of the mission of this orchestra, long-standing tradition. I would, on average, 2 or 3 concerts a year feature students in this category. They are staggeringly good. I hate to tell you, they're not student
Scary,
musicians.
isn't it?
Scary. It almost make me want to practice. Almost. We're very pleased to have them. Anna is co-concert master of the St. Louis Youth Orchestra. She's an outstanding violinist, playing first movement from the Lalo Symphony Español. And Zachary Folks is actually a collegiate student. He's at Missouri S&T. He's a science engineering kind of guy in his professional aspirations, but he is an outstanding clarinetist. He is the section leader of the clarinets in the St. Louis Youth Orchestra, and as I understand it, comes back every week to rehearse with the youth orchestra. Very committed to this, and he's an outstanding player.
I think it's great that you're featuring them. Yes.
Yeah. And well, I will also add that these young artists have traditionally been incredible interviews during the Notes to Munch On, and I've been thoroughly impressed interviewing 15 and 16-year-olds who, frankly, can discuss their music just like a college student. It's been a constant source of inspiration for me, and the audience have absolutely loved it. So don't miss that because we'll bring them up on the steps, and they have really insightful things to say about the music they're going to play.
That's a wonderful point, too. And, I think, too, when you hear, especially a young soloist, to have had a glimpse into that person, if you will, you feel like you kind of know them a little bit then, and then you sort of appreciate their expression within the piece maybe a little bit more than you would ordinarily.
Absolutely, Kathy.
Well, this just is going to be such a great season. I'm just tickled for you.
Thank you so much. I want to take the opportunity, first of all, to thank the radio station for having us, but also we've spewed a lot of facts and figures
Yes.
and names and whatever. But thanks to our advertising series on RAF, each week we'll give you several reminders of what that week's program is. So little highlights of the solo artists and the repertoire, and we really appreciate that, the opportunity to be present on the air each week.
Well, we certainly do appreciate you advertising with us, too. Yes.
And I
Paul.
want to just take a second, and if we have any donors that might be listening, we would like to thank them. And we'd also like to thank some advertisers who contribute to our program, which we do have a printed program for the concerts, which is another source of information for our audience.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where this community tends to want to support really good quality music, and this is what you've got right here. And free. Bring the family, bring the friends, bring the lawn chairs, bring something to munch on.
Bring the cooler.
Bring the cooler. Bring the cooler. And there is Ted Drew's, and there is water.
Yes.
And-
Ted Drew's is always top on my list to mention.
Absolutely.
Because St. Louisans just love Ted Drew's.
What's not to love?
It's pleasure every spoonful.
Absolutely. Sheer decadence. And if you want more information about the season and that sort of thing, simply go to gatewayfestivalorchestra.org. That's all you have to do. And be sure to show up not at 7:30, which is downbeat, but show up at 7:10, actually a little before that, so that you can hit the notes to munch on. One other thing, where should people park?
Another good question. Well, we can't hide the fact there is some construction on the Washington University campus, as everyone knows who's driven down Skinker. We want our patrons to park in lots or the parking garage off of Forsyth, or there is an alternate, lesser used parking garage off of Big Bend somewhere. I'm not, off of the Parkway somewhere. And I'm not entirely sure where that is, having always used the Forsyth myself. But I will say the one thing we would just like to kindly ask our patrons is you can basically park anywhere except the red signs. And those are the faculty spots. And from what I understand, the faculty pay a little bit of money for those spots, and those are theirs. So we respect that. Just you can pretty much park anywhere, just not those red signs.
Even though it is a Sunday night.
Correct.
And we have extensive signage through the campus that helps direct people from any of those parking venues to the quadrangle.
Perfect. The Brookings Quadrangle this Sunday From Sea to Shining Sea. And I want to thank both of you for being here. Once again, Dr. James Richards, Artistic Director, Conductor, all-around good guy. And Paul Higdon, pianist and president of the Gateway Festival Orchestra. Thanks both for being here.
Pleasure, Kathy.
Thanks, Kathy.
Always a pleasure. And I thought what we might do is to play out with one of the conductor's favorites, Die Fledermaus, the overture to it. Johann Strauss II, the Overture to Die Fledermaus with the Philharmonia Orchestra and Otto Klemperer. And once again, you can hear the Gateway Festival Orchestra playing that at the end of July. And go online and find out what all they're doing and keep up with it, because it starts this Sunday, 7:10, Notes to Munch On, and 7:30, Downbeat. GatewayFestivalOrchestra.org in the Brookings Triangle, Washington University. Since it was mentioned a couple of times, I'll also play Copland's Danzón Cubano, David Zinman and the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra.